What do Mikel Arteta and Xabi Alonso have in common? Their respective teams, Arsenal and Real Madrid, currently lead the two most watched leagues in world football, but there is something else. They are both from here, Gipuzkoa, which is the smallest province in all of Spain. So is Bournemouth's Andoni Iraola, four-time Europa League winning Aston Villa manager Unai Emery, former Spain and Real Madrid head coach Julen Lopetegui, and recently appointed Real Sociedad boss Sergio Francisco, among many, many others. Watford's Javi Gracia, formerly of Leeds and Valencia, and Copa del Rey winning ex-Real Sociedad boss Imanol Alguacil are also natives of Gipuzkoa, as are the likes of Pep Guardiola's former assistant, Juan Manuel Lillo, Barcelona and Man City's all-time most successful directors of football, Chiqui Begiristain, and Liverpool, Valencia and Spain's much-loved former goalkeeping coach, Jose Manuel Pochettino, who sadly died last month. Current players from Gipuzkoa, meanwhile, include the likes of Mikel Oyarzabal, Gorka Gurazeta, and Martin Zubamendi. All of this despite the fact that Gipuzkoa is smaller in size than Luxembourg or East Yorkshire, and is only home to roughly 1.5% of Spain's total population. Nowhere on earth has a more outsized impact upon the world of football relative to both its size and population, and nowhere even comes remotely close in terms of developing coaches, scouts, and elite football executives. On the face of it, it appears to be a bizarre quirk of fate, but is it really as random as it seems? Well, I went to Gipuzkoa, and all around the Basque country in truth, visiting football schools, academies, and the region's two biggest professional clubs, in order to investigate, like Sherlock Holmes, if Sherlock Holmes had been primarily interested in why a tiny Spanish province produced some of the best managers in the world, and had gone around eating loads of pintosh while attempting to figure it out. So sit back, relax, and join me on a journey, quite literally, to the Mecca of football managers, in an attempt to figure out why somewhere with a smaller population than Dorset, Alaska, and Bhutan keeps producing some of the best managers in the world. Xabi Alonso, Mikel Arteta, and Andoni Iraola don't just all hail from Gipuzkoa, all three of them, separated in age by less than 7 months, played for the same youth team for over 6 years during the 1990s. That team was Antiguoko, described by some as the greatest amateur talent factory in all of world football. Over 40 of Antiguoko's alumni have gone on to play top-flight football in Spain, making their youth recruitment and development the envy of most fully professional La Liga clubs.
Behind me is La Salle, the school where all Antiguoko players get their academic education as well as their footballing education. That is considered as important. The two are on a level footing here. It's not like a lot of academies where the focus is very much on turning players into footballers, turning young people into footballers. Here, it's about instilling a culture, a mindset, if you will, that is associated with the Basque country. And this is where the likes of Xabi Alonso, Andoni Iraola, Mikel Arteta all got their earliest footballing educations. Now, Antiguoko was formerly the feeder club for Real Sociedad. Those players all making their names at Real Sociedad. But now, quite controversially, it has a relationship with Athletic Club in Bilbao, despite being here in the heart of San Sebastián, which I'm told is something of a sore spot among Real Sociedad supporters.
Antiguoko is a team I am angry with them because they train the young players and then they are going to the Athletic. So
because you don't want them.
But
you want Islandia, you want Croatia, you want Tokyo. You don't want the Basque country. So we want and we take. And we pay, and we take.
Situated in the city of San Sebastián, or Donostia as it is known among locals, which is the largest city in Gipuzkoa and the province's capital, the current club, Antiguoko KE, was formed out of a split within Antiguoko CF at the start of the 1980s. The club's aim was to provide a platform for the region's most talented youngsters to hone their skills. Football, and sport in general, play an enormous role in Basque culture, and Antiguoko's vice president Roberto Montiel, speaking to the Johns Hopkins newsletter last year, talked of watching talented players training at the beach and inviting them to come and train with the club instead. La Concha Beach, an icon of San Sebastián, is still bustling with people today, both young and old, boys and girls, playing football and volleyball together on a daily basis. It has a bit of a similar feel to Rio's Copacabana, only about 10 to 20 degrees cooler on average, a good bit greyer, and it rains a lot more often. Admittedly, not there. That's more like it. Situated in the northern tip of Spain, bordering France, Gipuzkoa is often a little chillier, a little windier, and a little wetter than most of the nation. Both the capital, Donostia, and Gipuzkoa's many small but idyllic towns and villages, like Copa del Rey winning ex-Real Sociedad boss Imanol Alguacil's hometown of Orio, are synonymous with fishing. Straddling the river Orio is a town of just 6,000 people, yet it has provided Real Sociedad with 3 first-team players in the modern era. The neighbouring, slightly larger town of Zarauz was the birthplace of Spain and Athletic Club legend José Ángel Eibar, who is still a director at the club and has a statue outside of the San Mamés Stadium. Current Athletic Club and former PSG and Real Sociedad fullback Yuri Bachiche, and Alex Padilla, who is Unai Simon's number 2 at Athletic Club. Walk a few miles inland and you'll reach Eibar, a tiny village up in the mountains, where recently promoted Athletic Club first-team centre-forward Urko Izeta was born. Just like the beauty of Donostia's coastline, sculpted by the waves which constantly crash against it, the people of Gipuzkoa are a product of their harsh environment. Fishermen and farmers, the 2 core industries in this region for millennia, had to be tough and adaptable in order to brave the elements. This has bred a ruggedness among the region's locals, which persists even in an age where the more profitable and less demanding sector of tourism has become just as important. There is a solidarity which exists here, and throughout the Basque Country, based upon a shared identity, but also through centuries of resistance. The Basque cause has ebbed and flowed over the years, in terms of its success, its methods, and its goals, but it has honed a sense of comradeship which is rare throughout much of the world. In few places is this more keenly felt than in Gipuzkoa, which is the province with the highest percentage of Basque speakers. In the 2023 Spanish general election, the 3 parties who received the highest share of the vote in Gipuzkoa were all Basque nationalist parties. Bildu, a left-wing pro-independence party, performed best. The centre-left Socialist Party of the Basque Country, which is affiliated nationally with the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party, came second, and the Basque Nationalist Party, an ostensibly centrist Big Tent Basque Nationalist Party with both liberal conservative and social democratic factions, came in third. Between them, they won over 75% of the vote. Spain's far-right party Vox, who came third nationally with 12.4% of the vote, secured barely 2% in Gipuzkoa, equivalent to fewer than 8,000 votes in total. This is partly because Spanish nationalism is inherently hostile to regions with separatist ambitions and distinct cultural identities, as was probably best illustrated by over 3 decades of Franco's dictatorship, which saw pro-autonomy and resistance movements become tied to the collective left. You see something very similar in Catalonia, for example, but the Basque Country, and Gipuzkoa in particular, has also cultivated a powerful belief in collectivism. The European capital of worker cooperatives, along with the Emilia-Romagna region of northern Italy, Gipuzkoa, a province of a little over 700,000 people, is home to more worker cooperatives than the entire United States. The largest of them, and indeed the largest industrial worker cooperative anywhere in the world, is the Mondragon Corporation. Founded in the 1950s by a Catholic priest in the Gipuzkoan town from which it takes its name, the Mondragon Corporation is a federation of around 100 or so cooperatives. With turnover in excess of 11 billion euros and more than 70,000 employees, the Mondragon Corporation is the largest company in the Basque Country in terms of asset turnover and the 7th largest in all of Spain. A worker cooperative is just a business which is owned and democratically run by the people who work in it. The Mondragon Corporation, as the name suggests, is still a corporation which works to generate profit. It's just that those profits are then redistributed to the staff and members who work there, as opposed to shareholders. Well, they are its shareholders. The rule at the Mondragon Corporation is that the group's highest paid workers and executives should earn no more than 6 times as much as the lowest paid workers and members, and 9 times as much as a hard limit. Within some cooperatives, the pay scale is as low as 3 times. At FTSE 350 companies, by contrast, the 350 largest companies listed on the London Stock Exchange, the average ratio between CEO and average pay is 75 to 1. At S&P 500 companies, the 500 largest companies listed on stock exchanges in the United States, the gap between the average worker, let alone the lowest paid, and the highest paid executive is 268 to 1. Erota Mendieta, a marketing manager within the Mondragon Corporation, joked in an interview with The Guardian last year that when he shares his ideas with people in Texas or Kansas, they think that he's a communist. In reality, the Mondragon Corporation functions like any other business, except for the fact that workers have a stake. Members, operating within a system of one member, one vote, determine their own pay and conditions. But that doesn't always mean big pay hikes or generous bonuses. When times are hard, members sometimes vote in favour of their own pay cuts or take on more hours, because they are invested in the company as a whole, not just themselves as individuals. On the flip side, workers at Mondragon have extremely high job security. They can move between cooperatives and retrain if roles dry up in one department, and there is greater demand elsewhere, and if no work can be found for them, members of the cooperative are entitled to 2 whole years of unemployment benefits, which typically provides 80% of their in-work salary. Mondragon is the largest, but it is one of more than 750 worker cooperatives in Gipuzkoa, and close to 2,000 in the Basque country as a whole. Athletic Club themselves, in neighbouring Vizcaya, are owned by their nearly 50,000 members. Meanwhile, Real Sociedad prevents any one shareholder from owning more than 2% of the club. Igor Arate, an engineer at Mondragon Assembly, told Bloomberg in 2022 that, quote, "The objective of the cooperative is not to produce rich people, it's to produce rich societies." Adding that, quote, "We don't have a lot of rich people, or not very rich, but on the other hand, we also don't have poor people." End quote. These are things that pundits and politicians routinely describe as being utopian or unworkable throughout most of the world, that it is impossible to combine equality with success and innovation, that capable executives will only ever work for 7 or 8-figure salaries, and that paying junior staff a living wage would simply bankrupt companies. But Gipuzkoa is living proof that it can work. As per the Gini coefficient, which measures the distribution of income and wealth, Gipuzkoa is more equal not only than anywhere else in Spain, but even than the Nordics, like Norway and Finland, which are the most equal countries in Europe. Gipuzkoa isn't just equal though. Like Norway and Finland, it is also affluent. It has the lowest unemployment rate in the whole of Spain, and the highest income as measured either by individuals or by households. Gipuzkoa isn't paradise, and its citizens aren't angels, but Basque brothers Gipuzkoa and Vizcaya frequently rank as the Spanish provinces with the highest quality of life, and among the highest in all of Europe, once again rivaling the Nordics and parts of Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. Another Mondragon member, Baltazar Garcia Leon, told Bloomberg, quote, "When I go to other areas, I notice much greater social differences. Here, the manager can be my neighbour. Elsewhere, I guess they live in gated communities." End quote. This collaborative or collectivist spirit, and the principle of valuing the team as being of greater importance than any one individual, appears to be instrumental in the Basque country, and particularly Gipuzkoa's ability to churn out such brilliant players and managers. Veteran Basque coach Mikel Arteta is sometimes referred to as the coach of coaches, or simply the professor. Echari, who coached the likes of Alonso, Arteta, Iraola, Emery and Alguacil, has been asked repeatedly why he, and Gipuzkoa more broadly, produced so many great managers. In 2023, he told Up the Cherries, an AFC Bournemouth fan channel, that, quote, "I understand that soccer is a presentation of the idiosyncrasies of a country, and ours has been an emigrant country, accustomed to work through effort, agricultural and industrial, and accustomed to the creation of cooperative industry such as the Mondragon Group, where solidarity and group effort is a priority." End quote. It is interesting that Echari highlights the Basque country's emigrant past. Whilst this is a region with an incredibly strong sense of identity, which is represented in their football, Athletic Club famously only select Basque players, and Real Sociedad had the same policy up until the late 1980s, it is also one which is modern, adaptable, and open to new ideas. Whereas Spanish football is synonymous now with tiki-taka, and the very possession-based football pioneered by the likes of Johan Cruyff and Pep Guardiola at Barcelona, and subsequently adopted by the national team setup, the Basque country, in all spheres, retains a degree of autonomy. Football here is often considered to be more physical, more direct, and more pragmatic, which some attribute to the British influence which is still keenly felt, especially at Athletic Club. There is no defining or dogmatic Basque or Gipuzkoan style, just a basic set of fundamental principles relating to hard work, solidarity, and always competing. The Basques may not be outright disciples of Cruyff's ideals of total football then, but he more than anyone else appreciated their ethos. Cruyff once stated, quote, "The first thing I did as a coach was sign 4 players from the Basque region. They fear nothing. I needed people like that in my team." End quote. Then there is the fact that there are an extraordinary number of coaches in Gipuzkoa, making the probability that some of them will rise to prominence and even become truly great managers disproportionately high. There is a commitment within all Basque clubs, amateur and professional, to promote from within. Antiguoko, for example, seek to bring back their own alumni, whether they made it within the professional game or not, in order to coach the next generation. Athletic Club manager Ernesto Valverde wasn't born in the Basque country, but he moved there as an infant. He began his career with Alaves, represented the Basque national team, and spent 6 years with Athletic Club. Despite ending his career with Mallorca, he began coaching Athletic Club's youth department as soon as he retired, and 4 years later, he was the first team's assistant. Following a year managing Bilbao Athletic Club's reserve team, he was handed the top job in 2003. Valverde became the head coach of Athletic Club, the 3rd biggest club in Spain, without having coached anywhere else. He's now in his 3rd stint managing the club. This isn't uncommon in the Basque country. Before him, Athletic Club were managed by Gaizka Garitano, who was born in Bilbao, began his career with Athletic Club, and also managed Bilbao Athletic before he landed the top job. Javier Clement, Athletic Club's most successful manager of the modern era, was a one-club man who was born in Vizcaya, but was forced to retire from football in his early 20s. He took charge of Bilbao Athletic at the age of only 29, and by 31, he was managing the first team on the first of 3 occasions, with whom he went on to win 2 La Liga titles and the Copa del Rey. Recently departed Real Sociedad boss Imanol Alguacil was born in Orio, the small Gipuzkoan fishing town mentioned earlier on, and both began his career and spent most of it playing for Real Sociedad. Following a number of years coaching kids in Orio and neighbouring Carrots, Alguacil rejoined Real Sociedad as an assistant for their under-19s. In 2018, Alguacil was asked to take temporary charge of La Real's first team after head coach Eusebio was sacked, but he turned down the opportunity to manage the club on a permanent basis, insisting that his commitment was to the club's youth department. 6 months later, La Real asked him again, and this time Alguacil said yes. He managed Real Sociedad for 7 years, lifting the Copa del Rey in the 2019-20 season and winning the Manager of the Year award following a 4th place finish in the 2022-23 campaign. His predecessor, Asaya Garitano, was also born in a small town in Gipuzkoa, as was his successor, Sergio Francisco, who began his career at Real Sociedad and managed both the club's B and C teams for the last 8 years before being appointed as head coach. Due to Gipuzkoa's high social spending, it also has some of the best facilities and most freely available football pitches in Spain, making access to quality coaching and services widely available to both boys and girls. It's no surprise then that 20% of La Liga clubs are Basque, including Osasuna, despite only accounting for 6% of Spain's population, and that there were 3 Basque players in Spain's victorious Euro 2024 Final 11 against England, plus 3 of their 4 substitutes, one of whom, Mikel Arteta, is a native of Gipuzkoa and a one-club man at Real Sociedad. Maybe one day, he'll manage them too. In fact, both of Spain's goal scorers against England in that final, Nico Williams and Mikel Arteta, were Basque natives. Combine Gipuzkoa's collectivist spirit, incredible work ethic, and widespread access to quality coaching and facilities, and perhaps it isn't all that surprising that this tiny province in the Basque Country is shaping world football to such a disproportionate extent. I am cautious of painting too idealised an image of Gipuzkoa. The streets aren't paved with gold, San Sebastián is teeming with tourists, and there is no tram system. I can forgive a lack of gold-paved streets, I'm not even sure what that would be good for, but I love a tram, so that is a black mark against it. There is also likely an element of randomness or fortune behind the sheer number of top-class coaches the region has produced, all of whom are of a roughly similar age. Just as clubs and countries have golden generations of players, it seems plausible that Gipuzkoa may have had one in terms of coaches. But this is a remarkable place in terms of countering the narrative that you can't have both prosperous and equal societies, when the most prosperous countries in Europe are also often among the most equal. In terms of its passion and seriousness about its football, you see far fewer Real Madrid and Barcelona shirts in the Basque Country than almost anywhere else in Spain, and in terms of the constant conveyor belt of both players and managers that the province continues to churn out. And the food. Mainly the food, to be honest.